Hey, everybody, it's Doug Green, and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News. And I'm very pleased to have with me today Chitra Nawbatt, who is the author of the CodeBreaker Mindset. Chitra, thank you for joining me today.
Doug, thank you for having me, and good day to all of your readers, viewers, listeners, everyone.
So, Chitra, we are here with you and your book and your show. So we're going to talk about all that. But the big message is that you seem to have some new thinking and new ideas to look at not just AI, which we're covering extensively, but the way AI is impacting companies, the way AI is engaging companies in terms of how they price for services, and even how companies expand their employment. But first, tell me all about the CodeBreaker Mindset. What is that? It's a book, but also I think it's a message.
That's right, Doug. So the CodeBreaker Mindset is a book, it's a podcast, it's a movement. And actually, just to address something you said right off the top, in this environment of tech and AI moving faster than fast, right? Most things are becoming commoditized faster than we can even decipher, keep up. So it's all about pattern recognition, outlier thinking, outlier architects to create value, especially nonlinear value creation. And that's what the CodeBreaker Mindset is about. It is giving all of us a framework to build our pattern recognition, which leads to effective decision making. And that decision making is to accelerate business growth, leadership, career pivots, even in your personal life. But whatever it is you're trying to do to get from point A to point B, it's about the pattern recognition to inform your decision making so you can make more efficient and enriching decisions.
Now, in the run up to our podcast today, we were discussing some of the big CRMs, which are all famous. Everyone knows them. And historically, they offered something that no one else had, right? They offered an organizational tool that helped you figure out who you were supposed to call and reach out. And they were okay. But you're saying even that's become kind of a commodity. It's become something they can't charge a lot for.
100%, because as you and I were talking, an analogy is in a way a dollar store, right? When you think about, to give this analogy, right, when you think about so many years ago, right, in the times of Pioneer Village, our forefathers were going to the market to sell their goods. And by the way, in many parts of all over the world, people still do that, even here in New York City. But at scale, people would go to the market, right? Then came the grocery store, the dry goods store. That was a thing. And those proprietors saw a lot more revenue because that was a new ecosystem, new business model, and how to which to sell goods and services. Fast forward, those retailers now over time, especially mid and lower tier retailers, have become dollar store, right? Thin margins, trying to keep costs down. It's about price times volume. The same analogy has happened with technology and technology companies and some of the CRM and other types of companies. So whether it's a workflow company, operating system company, whatever the software is, for the most part, in the early days of technology, when things were automated, high margin, because there's more scarcity, right? Scarcity around these technology companies, more high margin businesses, unique business models that the world was still trying to get their arms around. Now, most of those technology companies, the majority of them, are commoditized. We're accustomed to tech. The pricing has gone down. Margins have come down. It's now price times volume. Anywhere in the software business is about price times volume, commoditized. They're the new modern day dollar cost store, dollar store, if you will.
And so let's translate that to the channel partners and the MSPs that we reach. What's true for the mighty companies like Salesforce and so on, that can happen to you.
It's going to happen to, or it could potentially happen to any type of business out there. So whether you're a technology business, consumer goods, retail, oil and gas, manufacturing, if you look at and study time and how different industries and types of companies have evolved, right? There's that incubation early period. Then there's tremendous growth because it's a new technology, new good or service. Then there's a place of scale. Then there's commoditization. And the question is what will that time frame be? And if you've got the CodeBreaker mindset of pattern recognition, you as a business leader, as an individual contributor, an investor, an entrepreneur. It's proactively preparing yourself, knowing that at some point, where are you in that life cycle of early stage versus scale stage versus maturation? And can you predict the maturation point and figure out either how to pivot your business, or know when maturation comes, you're going to be in commoditization. So therefore, you've got to get way more productivity, way more, squeezing more out of your customers, and expand your business into newer other product or service areas. And oftentimes, leaders sit happy at the top of these companies thinking that the duration will be forever, missing the pattern recognition, missing the signals, because no one out there should be surprised that the majority of technology companies are commoditized. Individual contributors and leaders were perhaps not proactively preparing themselves, or they knew, they just said, you know what, we're going to ride the wave, ride the gravy train until the tap dries up. I know I'm using a lot of analogies here in my speaking, but hopefully folks are following along.
So, AI is a part of a revolution. Even the things that came before AI were really part of a technology revolution. But the one thing that seems to remain the same are the laws of economics. And you basically talked a little bit about this. I want to come back to something you said earlier. You said something to the effect of linear. And expand on that a little bit, because I think you're touching on the idea of value add and these sort of ongoing economic rules.
So just to keep it simple, sort of two buckets, right? Linear, nonlinear. And linear is a given. Linear is like merit, right? Linear is what gets you to the table. Linear keeps the lights on. However, it's about the nonlinear. In all of our journeys, even career-wise, perhaps many of us have had nonlinear pivots. A nonlinear is a boss or a sponsor who you work with for the entirety of your career and helps prop you up in really great positions, right? Not everybody gets that opportunity. And that's a nonlinear advantage from a career standpoint. When it comes to business and the economics of business, similarly, coming up with a new product or service, coming up with a new asset. I'll give you an example. I'm from the country. This is not a technology example, but it has a lot of technology implications, which is I'm from a country on the northeast coast of South America, Guyana. That's where I was born. 100 years ago, 50 years ago, people didn't discover oil off the coast of Guyana, right? 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. 15 years ago, however, in the last 5 to 10 years, massive oil find, right? That is nonlinear. Now, that's Mother Nature, geology, the earth, giving the country of Guyana the gift of a tremendous natural resource, nonlinear, which means all the business, all the oil and gas manufacturing technology businesses that will come have been birthed out of that nonlinear value creation, out of a nonlinear natural resource situated in Guyana. So this is just an example of what's linear, price times volume. Most business, most innovation is linear. The opportunity is to create the nonlinear. And that's what a lot of technology companies, that's what Apple first did when it came up with the computer. That's what the mobile device was when it first came. That's what AI machine learning was when it was first invented, right? That's what workflow tools and even CRM was when it first was birthed and conceived. But now we're at a place where what's the next nonlinear technology, product, service? Even when you think about social media, when Twitter, Napster, MySpace, Instagram first came, there was a nonlinearity. Now commoditized, right? And now it's just back to traditional MarTech tools in the case of social media. So therefore, what's the next nonlinear industry, business model, product, service, talent to get there?
Now, everyone hated economics. All the business majors always hated economics, right? It's a sort of almost rule. So I'm recalling something from my economics years. P times Q equals, I'm making it linear, but that's output, right? For most companies, we have so many widgets, we're pricing it at so much per widget. There's your revenue, right? And that's what you're calling linear. So
correct.
You're saying there is a way to break out of this equation, nonlinear. Now, is it a matter of manipulating one of the two parts of this equation, or is it something else?
So Couple of things. And the first thing I'll actually share is in the book, The CodeBreaker Mindset, I came up with an equation to help that pattern recognition decision making, which has a nonlinear component. So that equation is called the CodeBreaker Mindset, the CodeBreaker Mindset equation. And that equation gets into whatever it is you're doing. And we're talking about business building here, right? Which is there's going to be written and unwritten rules, pivots, spotting the signals to understand the voluntary and the involuntary pivots in business building. And the third element is serendipity. Now, perhaps to a tech audience, people may say, serendipity, that's luck. Serendipity actually is science. And serendipity is the alignment of 5 things: preparation, timing, right place at the right time, opportunity, meaning there's an opening, energy alignment, and informed intuition. These elements form the CodeBreaker Mindset equation. So written plus unwritten rules times the pivots, all of that to the exponent of serendipity and informed intuition. That equation is an anchor framework that has guided many people without necessarily realizing it. But if you put consciousness and explicit thinking around that, that helps you decode and understand what's going on in your environment, what innovation is working, what product or service should you develop next. And it helps you do that in a more efficient, effective, and enriching way. So that's one example of an equation with nonlinearity to it, right? And it's the alignment of those elements, especially the serendipity component, which is a way to guide your decision making in building your business, leadership, hiring people, how you deploy budgets. That's one example. Do you have any questions before I move on to the next example?
No. I'm intrigued because I guess we're hearing a lot about experiences. I'm hearing that word all the time. Instead of hearing product, is serendipity have something to do with experience? Is it the same thing or is it different?
I love actually that where you've just taken that, and serendipity is holistic experiential. And that's not meant to sound like puff pastry.
I'm trying to follow this.
But it's, no, and thank you for probing here. Thank you for that. It's holistic experiential, right? Because, and to go a little bit further on the serendipity. So preparation is you came to the table, with the PhD in engineering or whatever is your background, right? From a knowledge perspective, and your preparation is both your knowledge as well as your experiential base, your hard skills, your soft skills, your EQ, holistic frames of reference, etc., domain, right? Industry expertise, context. That's your preparation. Timing is being able to spot, is now the right time in the market for A, B, and C? Is now the right time to engage with a particular customer channel partner? Is now the right time in the market? Wow, I'm the country of Guyana. Now in the last 5 to 10 years, I'm given this natural resource, right? Do I have the preparation, the infrastructure to seize that opportunity, right? So this notion of timing. Opportunity is there's an opening. When you think about the normal distribution was created, as this is an example, in the 1800s by those scientists and mathematicians that were beyond outliers. But the majority of planet Earth couldn't read and write, right? So there's an opportunity, meaning there's an opening, but is the opening, again, at the right time with the right preparation, right? So all these things have to line up, and thus the holistic notion of experience, and then energy, right? I could be trying to pitch to do business with you. For example, when Steve Jobs took the Apple iPhone into China the first time, it didn't work, right? Everything wasn't aligned. So he might have been prepared, maybe not sufficiently prepared. Timing, it wasn't the right time. Was there the right opening and opportunity from the country of China? Was there energy alignment? Energy is not just something fluffy. When he was meeting the Chinese leaders at the time, was there the right simpatico, relationship building, cohesive value exchange? And then your own informed intuition, which is your raw intuition you're born with, plus your life-to-date pattern recognition that you as an individual leader, when you engage other stakeholders, your own informed intuition on what does your intuition tell you about those stakeholders, that country, that company, that context, and your ability to move forward? So that's why I say serendipity is not luck. It's science. It's the alignment of all of those things. There's hard and soft methodology. And sometimes we discount the soft methodology, the intangible, but that is the biggest part of business, right? The hard methodology or the technical you can solve for because it's just math. Especially in a technology business. I had this conversation with somebody from Qualcomm the other day, right, about 5G latency and the 5G still not fully working at scale, right? So the technological problems, it's math, it's science, that's solvable. It is the soft stuff that is the harder part when you're trying to get new technology implemented at scale in the appropriate contexts and make money off of that, right? So I know I deviated a little bit, but hopefully that answers your question.
There is so much to talk about, but we need to wrap up our brief podcast today. Chitra, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to put on the stage here the book. That is the book. Let me remove that thing that's covering it. Where can we literally buy this book?
So thank you so much. Proceeds go to cancer research. So I wrote this book, after a career in across 6+ industries as a growth advisor, investor, business operator. I wrote this book to help everyone through the thought leadership, and proceeds going to cancer research because my dad died of a rare form of cancer. And you can find the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere books are sold. On my website, chitranawbatt.com, which is just my name. And you can find me on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the places, Twitter, TikTok, at Chitra Nawbatt. But the link is on my website, in my social media, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere books are found. Books A Million, everywhere books are found. Thank you so much, Doug, and to your audience.
Chitra, thank you very much. We're going to have further discussions, I promise everybody. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
And the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the places.